All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we get to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight on your brain. What are we talking about today, Samuel?
Well, hopefully this is a helpful one for the ladies in the audience because we're going to talk intrasexual competition, which means competition between the same sex. No, we'll talk men too. We're familiar with it, but it looks different. We we
Mhm.
we compete with other men, and women compete with other women, and it just looks different. So hopefully it's a very informative one for you.
So the first thing that popped into my mind when you said that is, and I haven't really dove into this. There was an interesting looking Modern Wisdom episode, I think a couple months ago, on intersex competition. I think it was primarily talking about female intersex competition, and I was interested in it, but I never got around to it. And when you wanted to talk about this, I thought, well, I'm just going to come at it from the complete layperson's point of view, um, because if you grew up with sisters, or even if you had close girls friends when you were a teenager, young man, you should understand this conceptually because you know about the soap opera drama, you know about the queen bee phenomenon. We know these things even if we don't know why, from a technical psychological point of view. But if you were paying attention and you had sisters or friends who were girls growing up, you would have seen this, or at least seen the results of this, which can be pretty rough. And when you talked about the men competing against each other, I can't remember if this is something you sent me, but someone making the analogy of something to the effect of men sprint against each other.
I said it on the last
You
episode.
said it. Okay,
I
yeah,
said
say
it.
that
Yeah.
again.
Men sprint to beat each other, women trip each other.
And that is the first thing that popped in my head. And Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan.
That is the fantastic example. But no, Ben gave me he was we were going over his homework yesterday, and he has to do a presentation on Cupid and Psyche and the analogy to the Beauty and the Beast. But there's also more to it because it's also like Cinderella, because the stepsisters are holding her back. And the problem with Cupid and Psyche is the stepsisters actually sabotaged the relationship because they wanted Cupid. And it was a oh, there's this one rule you have to follow to be in this relationship, which was to never look at him, which is why it's like the Beauty and the Beast. It's you can't look at him and see the person he really is. Uh, but they were like they devised a plan where she would have a lantern and see him, and it ruined the whole thing. It ruined everything, and they pulled it off because and then they tried to get with him. So it was all a deceptive kind of thing, and I'm like, yeah, this is a story as old as time, man. To quote the words of the song in Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and and this is another warping of female psychology, especially for again, stories matter. That we have these kinds of stories like Cupid and Psyche, like Beauty and the Beast, like Cinderella. And you mentioned the stepsisters, and I can't remember who's doing this, but I think one of the neurotic people reference there is a new Cinderella in the works, told from the stepsister's perspective. And it's going to be another these things like Maleficent or like Wicked, where
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
they're not actually bad, they're just misunderstood. And it is right in line with that clip I played of cheating is now the standard of the romance movie. You're being told that this is acceptable. This is what you do. And I went down a little bit of a
Well,
rabbit hole with
and
Echo Chamberlain on that one, and it's even worse than what you see in that video.
People know from our previous episodes if they're watching, thank you and like and subscribe and everything and spread us around, please. I need the money. But it's uh I defend the what would we say, empathy for people with psychological problems. So we look at a psychopath, right? Ted Bundy. He had a part of his brain that was not developed. He could not help what he did. But at the same time, he needed to be put away.
But at the same time, he did it, and he was going to do
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
again
yeah.
if you
Because
didn't
because
stop him.
because he had that problem, I can say I feel bad for you, but at the same time, you're not doing good things. You're not pro-social. You are the key word is antisocial, right? You are antisocial. Borderline personality disorder. They say, "Oh, you should really, have some empathy for these mostly female people." But it's like, but actually we also need to protect ourselves from them. And so we can have that empathy and still say, well, that's not good behavior. And if we can't figure out how to make it right for you, we need to separate you from or find some way to make sure you don't hurt other people.
Mhm.
It's like Sapolsky says in his when he was talking about his book Determined, because the whole free will thing, right? He says, I have sympathy for these people, but it's like a car that the brakes don't work. You don't drive it. It's,
So you had a meme that when we were looking for visual aids to go along with this, you had an interesting meme about the difference between uh men and women and the affirmations they receive
hmm
culturally. Bring that up because there is a point there that circles this back to our topic here. Um,
Yeah, and I'm
so
not I'm just gonna read it out loud because I don't want the music to like get
yeah.
us in trouble or anything. And why are you the only one showing up when I screen share? Oh, wait, it doesn't matter. But it says, if you're only listening, it says, a woman receives so many compliments that the smallest insult wounds her. A man is insulted so often that the smallest compliment stays with him.
Mhm. And so the how I think this connects to intersex competition is um, I think I think with the advent of social media, we are seeing a warping, a shifting in how this usually works with women because and you touched on this last time, the I think you're onto something that a lot of these affirmations like body positivity are coming from women who don't want the competition.
hmm
So so you see this now to the point of that meme, you understand grain of salt here. A lot of those insults come from our friend group because that's how
hmm
guys roll. But the point of those insults is to keep you humble, to make sure you understand your place in the world and your head doesn't get too swelled. Well, women used to have their own way of doing that, but now with the advent of social media and the as we always say, and we can never remember the name of the British psych that we got this from is stop getting your mental health advice from Instagram.
Chatwa. It was like something like that.
It's something
C
I
H
can't
C H
pronounce.
A W T A. I think. Yeah.
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 But the that mental health advice is because that's not mental health. That is affirmation. Well, if you are affirming something that's bad, then that's bad.
Well, let's look at the trans movement, right? The uh to get ourselves in trouble. We bring up Deborah So's work again.
Mm-hmm.
The End of Gender is one of her books I should have had up, I guess. But if you convince other women that they're men, you take them out of the dating pool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, officially, you take them out of the dating pool. So, do us guys go like, "Oh yeah, you're definitely gay." We'll say it as an insult, which, if people have problems with that or whatever, that's fine. We could have a different discussion about it, but we never say, "Oh, you know what? I saw the way you shook that person's hand. You might probably like dudes," because you would be taking people out of the dating pool. We don't do that, but women do it to each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We call them lipstick lesbians, realistically, right?
Yeah. Which, well, I think the um to stay on this analogy, the kind of the comparison there, the lipstick lesbian versus the guy who says he's trans and he's a lesbian. Okay, no, you're a guy who likes girls. You're just having a hard time getting a girl because it's always been hard and it's even worse now.
Hmm.
Just like on the other, the lipstick lesbian is usually from what I've read, from what I've seen, from the few personal experience encounters, is a a woman who doesn't want to have to do the work to get and keep a guy, or has had too many bad experiences and
Well,
feels and now feels more comfortable with a woman.
this is a very nuanced conversation because evolutionarily there is a caveat here for women because
And Dr.
be,
So touched on this in
yeah,
the interview with
because they were
Woodson.
together so often, they actually formed bonds with each other more often.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, let's everybody admit it. This is we might go into this. This is why, it's hard to have opposite sex friends and very uncomfortable too, because the more friendly you are with somebody, the more likely you are to be kind of sexual with them. And sexuality in history, we see it in primates right now, is a way of creating bonds that link you together and protect you in the long run. And us guys, we're out there killing a woolly mammoth. So we don't have time to Brokeback Mountain it. And but you're at the village with your children, you're needing to develop bonds with the other females, and it's grooming. It's the pulling the ticks out. It's the and it's just a sexual behavior, right? So it's there is something to say that it is it there's an evolutionary mechanism to the fact that there's more bisexual women, but to say you're trans is different. Bisexual means when the guy comes back from the hunt, you're still having his baby because he's the man manly enough to kill the woolly mammoth, right? But lesbian is you lose everything. You don't get the man who can kill the woolly mammoth, and you don't have a baby, and you lose your genetics.
Um,
That was kind of like a side tangent, but I wanted to make sure that we have the nuance of the conversation so nobody can come in and say, "Oh, well, this is this."
now when we teased this last time, you said you had, you know, data, numbers, the technical side of this, not just the, layperson that I would have of anecdotes of, crap my sisters had to deal with, or,
Hmm.
you know, you know, nonsense drama that friends had to deal with, that, that I've seen. But how does this manifest, and what is the potential downside then
Okay, there's lots of
to the other
downsides.
women?
I'll pull in a story from Rob Henderson that he tells all the time. He's the luxury beliefs guy,
Hmm.
which actually luxury beliefs are right in line with this. It's a class version of what we're talking about with gender,
Huh.
but he talks about a village where a Western woman came into the village to, I guess she was a reporter or something like that in a third world country, and the other women were very threatened by her. And so one of them gave her a poisoned uh, piece of food, like as a present, and said, "You can either eat this or you can give it to anybody you want." But it was like very not, it didn't smell good or anything like that. So they knew she wouldn't eat it. So she gave it to one of the local little boys, and he got poisoned. And then this woman basically got Salem witch trialed because of, and that was the that they planned the whole thing to get rid of this woman that they were threatened by. That's pretty crazy.
The the I mean, luxury beliefs. We in the West don't understand how abnormal we are. I mean,
That's
the
why we're
the
called
acronym
weird.
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 Yeah,
Yeah. Western industrialized, educated,
can't remember
rich,
what they are.
and
Rich. Yeah.
democratic. Yeah. Rich and democratic. Yeah.
Um. as I've said, I, 2 to 300,000 years, something like that, for Homo sapiens.
Yeah,
So
somewhere
just
between 150 to 200,000.
what
Yeah,
we
yeah.
think of as civilization, especially modern civilization, is very, very new. But it needs to also be added. It's actually not that widespread. We
Mm-mm.
think it is
Nope,
because
just
of
Europe and the Western world. That's it. Yeah.
because of our interconnectedness. We think it is. We also think it is because we equate technological progress with civilizational progress. They are not the same thing. Just look at China.
Hmm.
Just look at the brutality that goes on in China, and that is accepted there. That and they are incredibly technologically as advanced as most of the West in most ways, even if it's not as widespread as they would like it to, like us to believe. But I mean, there is a great example of technological progress does not equal civilization, and there you have it. Well, I've brought up the example of Germany before. In the early 1900s, the place to be in the whole world was Berlin for science, philosophy, literature, the arts, architecture. Uh, we think of Hollywood as Los Angeles, America, as the place for cinema, and yet in the early silent era, German cinema was top notch.
Hmm.
That was the thing. Um, as well as the traditional things like opera and symphonies and whatnot. And then within a generation, they would start two world wars and give us the term Holocaust.
Well, yeah,
And
this is a we're going far afield here, but this is a good example of how dogma destroys things, right? This is why communism kills everything. This is why, but in Germany we had fascism, right? But also look back at uh we have a war going on right now with Iran, right? And look how technologically behind they are. But remember, Persia used to be the mecca for technology. And what happened?
mm, that's a good point.
Islam.
Not allowed to
And
say that, but
you're
yeah.
not allowed to say that, but that's what happened is they created a dogma that said, "Hey, there's something more important than everything else." And
And what is the dogma of the moment that is destroying the West is wokeism,
wokeism,
radical
yeah,
wokeism. And who is most susceptible to that? Young women.
young women. But also, I mean, it's that to get back to our subject, that is because they're all trying to sabotage each
Mhm.
other.
Well, and the reason, thank you for keeping me from going off on too much of a tangent, but the reason I brought up those examples about human nature is because when we think that we as a species have changed, we think that we individually have changed, that we individually have become somehow perfected psychologically,
It is the
culturally,
mistake of the
civilizationally.
Enlightenment is we
And,
thought we got ahead of everything. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the reasons I always forget his name. There's an famous ethics professor, I think at Princeton, who always asked the question of his class, who would have stood up and been an abolitionist? Who would have stood up against
Oh,
the
what
Third
is that
Reich?
guy's
Shut
name?
up and put your hands down. No, you wouldn't have. And the
Yeah.
the numbers show that you wouldn't have. It was a very small minority, especially in the beginning, who who were abolitionists. Now later the abolitionist movement grew. Same thing with civil rights. It started very small. And if you don't
I think at
understand that, you
least
don't know that you as an individual have that capacity within yourself.
I think we could at least pat each other on the back here that COVID proved we might have
Mm,
because we did stand up against the powers at be, that were out there. And we took hits for it. We took hits for it. So it's not like we came out of it
yeah.
unscathed, you know.
That is a good modern example of, okay, where were you when all this was going on? And maybe at the very beginning you were doing some of the things that we look back on and go, well, that was nonsense, and has later been admitted, yeah, there was no scientific basis for that. We were just saying it to make people
But
feel
we
better.
only had the information we had.
Yeah.
And so
So,
I
okay.
look
So if
back,
at
yeah.
first, okay, fine, you were going along with the nonsense because you just weren't sure, But it didn't take very long to realize, wait a minute.
It took me getting COVID. That's what it took. Because I was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Da 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 da. And then when I had it and got through it, and they said, "Oh, you still need the vaccine," I'm like, "That's
Hmm.
not how immunology works.
That's
I'm
not how any of
vaccinated.
this works.
That's not how any of this works. I'm already vaccinated. I had the best vaccine you could get, which was the disease, and I survived it. Okay, it sucked because I had original Wuhan strain. It
Yeah.
sucked bad, but at the same time, it was like, wait a minute, you're trying to force me to do something.
Yep.
Let me look deeper into this. And then I came across all the people that were fighting, and I was like, oh, okay. Now let me also not go deep into that rabbit hole so deep that I'm like just following along there either. Like, okay, what are the things that they're saying that might be incorrect? Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. I get it now. Okay. And it just you kind of build from there and you try we're not perfect. I mean, I'm susceptible to propaganda just like everybody else, but damn it, I think at least can fight it a little bit better than some people.
And
Okay, we're back to
that is where, again, things we're not allowed to say, we're not supposed to say, but that is where females have it harder than men
hmm
because they are instinctually coalitional, and so they're going to want to be part of the consensus,
hmm
and they're going to want to not just be part of, but support the consensus.
Well,
Hey,
again,
we need
it
harmony here.
yeah, go back to evolutionary standards. We're all out men hunting the woolly mammoth. You don't go, oh, it's Dave's turn today to throw the spear. The person that's got the good shot, you throw the spear because otherwise everybody's dead, right? Whereas in the village, there's babies running around. Everybody
Yeah,
has to cooperate. If you're gathering, you need to like have a system for getting the best result out of it. That kind of. So it just makes freaking sense if people would just look at
I
it
mean,
from this angle.
don't need to go back to hunting and gathering. Is you've said before you'd love to debate Neil deGrasse Tyson just on the hot hand.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Is
yeah. You
you
give it to the guy who's hitting the shots.
mhm.
You know,
If
you
you want to win that game and we want to win that game,
you
you
give it to
feed the
Michael
guy who's got
Jordan.
that hot hand. Yep.
You give it to
Yep.
him. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
I don't care how much you don't like him. It's, you know, buzzer beater, one shot. Who are you giving it to? Well, if you're on the Bulls, you're giving it to Jordan. If you're on the Celtics, you're giving it to Bird. If you're on,
If you're on
you
Golden
give it
State,
to
you're
the
giving it to
guy.
Curry. I mean, if you're
Exactly.
anybody, you're giving it to Curry because he'll hit it from three-quarter court. So,
Yeah.
and
So in some ways, and I kind of referenced this previously, men, especially boys and young men, have it a little bit easier because to that meme is they've been insulted. They've been told they're not good. They've been told they're not good enough. They've been told they need a change. Even if what they're being told is wrong, they at least have that conceptually, you know. And it's if if your female friend group is affirming you and encouraging you to do things which are detrimental to you and your goals, it's going to be harder to see that, let alone stand up to it if
mhm.
you're a woman. If you are a
Well,
female, you're going to
it's
want
nice
to
to
go
get
along with the group.
compliments.
Exactly.
I mean, it feels good. I mean, even in that meme we just showed was that the guys really love the compliments. We just rarely get them, so
Hmm.
that's why we appreciate them more. And,
And and women have always kind of had this problem with. I think I've referenced before a clip I saw of Tony Robbins talking to a woman, who had stood up to ask some kind of question, and he asked her, so did you have a good relationship with your father? I bet he called you a princess. He treated you like one. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. He did a disservice to you. He didn't mean to, but he did. Because you're
Well,
not a princess, you're a human living in the real world.
and we can't help it as guys.
Exactly.
Again, going back to Beauty and the Beast, going back to Cupid, going back all that is that is like our role is to
But
make sure that we are affirming and confirming the person that we I mean, okay, so people say patriarchy. This is going to be the positive spin of patriarchy. Yes, we take the daddy role,
Hmm.
even in relationships. Yes, we
Women and
take the
children
daddy
first.
role.
Yeah.
Women and children first. That's the positive spin on it. Now, when it becomes controlling and abusive,
Yeah.
that's when we use the word toxic and properly, right? But
Exactly.
when it's, hey, honey, this is a bad decision for us. This is a bad decision for you. This is a bad, that's not always horrible. And when it's, let me open the door for you. Let me, hey, are your feet hurting? Let me carry you the rest of the way. You know, piggyback ride. Come on. Yeah, you're wearing those high heels and we walked a long way. That kind of stuff. That's the positive side of it. And sometimes you have to take one hit with the other. Not let me say that differently because we just said abusive. Not
Yes.
one hit with not one hit with the other, but I mean a little bit of, hey, maybe overboard with the we need to make these decisions or whatever, but it's
And where this on the female side, where the toxicity comes in this respect, when you're talking about intersex competition, is if your natural inclination is to comfort your girlfriend, that's a good thing. But if you're comforting her with a, yeah, you don't need him, you don't need that negativity in your life, you don't, and you're encouraging her to make a bad decision, well, that then becomes toxic,
God,
especially
I
if
should
it
have had it
is,
queued up. There's a comedian that she's talking about how your girlfriends will affirm you on everything. It's
yes,
like
it's that blonde girl that we've played before that
yeah,
my
I'm
wife likes.
stealing
I can't
from
remember her name.
him, and they're like, yeah, you're empowered,
Yes,
and
it's like,
he's like, he's good to me in all these ways. It's like, oh, he's controlling, and it's like, you know what? I bet you the friends that are saying that are trying to get with him after.
yup.
Yeah.
And I think, let me know if I'm stretching here, but it seems to me that in the past, it it might have been easier to spot this, but if you're getting these affirmations in a text group or
Mm,
in an online group or via Reddit post or via memes or via, you don't have tone, you don't have facial expressions, you don't have body language. There is a reason that most of the time you cannot use an affidavit, even though it is a sworn statement and carries the penalty of perjury. You can't use that as testimony except under very rare circumstances, because the the jury, the judge, the other counsel, the the defendant, they can't see the person. They can't ask contrary questions.
hmm
They
They can't
can't read the
cross-examine
situation.
or anything. Yeah.
Exactly. So much like that, I feel like the rise of social media is going to make it that much more difficult for women to recognize, wait, are you really trying to help me here, or are you trying to sabotage me?
hmm
But especially with the way that women, one of your superpowers is rating people.
Yeah, which is actually very self-sabotaging as well, because
Mhm.
there is a lot of that. And back to luxury beliefs, the people who are in influence uh really are sabotaging the people who aren't because they don't want them to come up and take their place. And so again, we can make this class or gender, and it actually I think we can mix gender and class in this exact discussion. But the self-sabotage is the birth rate decline is bad for everybody. Yeah, maybe you're passing your genetics along, but for how long? Because it's going to collapse. You're passing your genetics along, but that son or daughter of yours is going into a world that will collapse. I
and
mean, that's
and
one of the reasons we do all this because we both have kids.
and speaking to females, again, things you're not supposed to say, but it's true. Again, caveat, for most people, most of the time, women especially, I both sexes, but it does skew towards females.
The
you are
feminine.
going
We'll say it skews to the feminine.
you
Yeah,
are going to be the most happy and fulfilled as a parent.
not always.
That's why I say most people most of the time.
Yeah, well,
For,
I'm saying that actually is more a masculine trait.
really.
Yeah. So we see from the data that this is the Freudian Oedipus complex is they actually become jealous of their children.
Okay, I was not expecting that. So then, you know, I, I'm not a good lawyer because I'm not one yet, and even if I am one, I'm not going to be a good one by their standards. But you're not supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to, but I want to know. So then, do women actually get more happiness and satisfaction from having a good partner than having kids? Because where does the biological clock come from? Because that is a very real thing.
No, the biological clock is real. And this is kind of the basis of a lot of uh why am I blanking on the word? Starts with a D.
Speculative.
Where your inner feelings contradict your outer activities.
Huh.
But I'll think of it before the end of this conversation. But it's actually the basis of it because they will report higher satisfaction with their children, but then report lower happiness levels. And it's really a big
Dissonance is probably what you were saying.
dissonance. Yes, thank you very much. Golly, I'm the freaking one that should have known that word. Yeah, dissonance. But yeah, they're actually reporting higher levels of satisfaction when they're actually in lower levels of satisfaction. So it's really tough because that's the difference between reality and what's in your head
Mm,
is dissonance. That's the people think of dissonance is you're just like tricking yourself, but no, it's actually the pain involved with the difference in what you're performing versus what is actually in your mind. And women report higher levels of dissonance from, like, say, taking their kid to the soccer game or whatever. They're like, oh, yeah, no, I just wanted to see them play or da 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 da. And it's like, inside, they're also probably talking to their friend. Maybe they're talking to their friends and saying, God, we have another soccer tournament this weekend. So, and men are like, oh, yeah, she did great. She scored 2 goals. I'm proud, you know.
and I'm going to keep harping on this because I'm going back to school. I'm assuming you noticed this too and now I have kids in college and um I'm kind of frustrated and saddened that I don't know why I was expecting this because I rant about this all the time, but you know, you are your own worldview and your own experiences is I thought I thought moving out, transferring and going to like college, living on campus and all that would be a good way for my daughter to make more friends because she really only has a handful of friends and none of them are close because it's her brother who lives in Oklahoma and her best friend who lives in Kentucky and that's it, which isn't healthy, especially for a young person. But then I realized because I was kind of looking around and noticing this myself is now granted I'm old enough to be most of or not most, like half of my classmates, I'm old enough to be their parent, and the other half, it's they are also old enough to be their parents because they're my age and they're like starting a second career like me. But I was kind of looking around going, if I wanted to, I could make a friend here because nobody gets together. It's hey,
Mhm.
do you want to get together and study? Just text me, hit me up on the group me. I'm like,
Group me, yeah.
or
I just learned about Group me going back to
yep,
school too. So yeah.
yep. And I was like, wait, what? Don't y'all just like it was easy to make friends when we were in college because either
We sat in the lobby together in the dorm, played
you're
hacky
sitting
sack, and
you're
yeah.
sitting down in the lobby playing a game, watching The Simpsons, just talking because there's nothing else to do.
And the Wheel of
Or,
Time groups that you
yep,
jump
that's
in
how I
on.
found
Yeah,
Wheel of
yeah,
Time.
yeah.
And or you need help studying, that you get with a human being and you go to the lobby or you go to the library or whatever. From what I have seen, kids don't do that anymore.
Well, and that's how I met my ex-wife is her sister. We had study groups with that biology class that we were in. 10 of us would get together at Jim's restaurant in San Antonio. And one time I got food poisoning while we were there. But we would sit there and try to like make it easy to remember the answers to the test. And it was, that's what we sat there and did for forever. And we all became friends. And I mean, got me an 18-year marriage out of it. I think that's a
That ain't
pretty good
nothing.
result.
Yeah,
I'll take
yeah,
the return on that. But yeah, people don't do that anymore because yeah, back in school now, everybody's just like, okay, peace out after the class.
yep. And it like I say, it has to affect women more because you are
They are
you are
so social.
you are so social.
Yeah.
You're not getting that. And when you think you're getting it, you're not. In much the same way that Williamson and Dr. So talked about males, especially and disturbingly younger and younger, you know, gosh, I don't even remember the number she gave, but I remember it was shocking of the first exposure to pornography for boys. I want to say she said is as young as 8 now.
Yeah. So I said 8 or 9 for me.
Yeah.
Apparently, hey mom, I love you. She informed me. She said, no, you were like 5 years old, sucking your thumb, looking through a magazine one time when I found you.
Whoopsie.
I don't remember that. I don't remember it,
I don't
but
know if you're old enough to comprehend what was going on there, but
yeah,
still, you
I'm
know,
probably like, there's probably milk that comes out of that. Yeah,
the 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 point being, much like with boys, hey, that's not healthy because it feels like you're getting what you would get from sex, but it's not. It's not the same. Just like it feels like you're getting that social interaction via
hmm.
text, via group B, via whatever. It's not. It's not the same as being in person. It is not the same listening to an album as going to a concert, as you can attest because you love going to concerts.
Oh, I just went to one, and I kind of wanted to talk about that today a little bit because for those that are out there, two new bands that are on the rise, the Home Team and it sounds like Bill Murray, but it's Bilmuri. Bill Murray and fucking
Well,
sorry
let's
for the
let's close
language.
on that so we can make
Yeah.
sure we actually close on a on a
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
an
yeah.
up. I've
Let
got
me
one more thought on this that I want to. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. I want to know your thoughts on this. Is I When you first brought up intersex competition, especially amongst females, several weeks ago, I happened to stumble across a short of Jordan Peterson, and I don't think it was his show. I think he was being interviewed on another show, and I was like, "Oh man, this is perfect." And I was scrolling back through our messages, and I didn't see it, so I didn't send it to you, and I couldn't find it again. But I'm gonna paraphrase, and then I'm gonna add my own thoughts here and see what you think.
okay.
Is the interviewer had brought up the topic of male aggression, but it's specifically in the context of male violence. And you
Hmm.
see this as you brought up the statistics of 90 to 95%
Of
of prison inmates are male. And if you look at violent crime, it really skews if you look
yeah,
at those
yeah, yeah.
statistics. So,
Yeah,
but
the
Peterson,
only one that kind of evens out a little bit is like vandalism. And that's kind of like the what is the not Kelly Clarkson, what was the other girl that won the American Idol? The blonde one, country singer. But
Underwood,
she had that song where she was talking about him cheating and she's keying his truck and everything like that.
was that Carrie Underwood?
That's it. Yes, Carrie Underwood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the property damage actually was pretty even, but everything else violent is
And
yeah.
so that goes along with what Peterson countered with, which is, well, what about reputational violence? So
Mm,
basically, he said, well, that's because of the way we define it and think about it. And it got me to thinking that that's a really good point. And go with this idea of intersex competition, the way women are, because they are not bigger and stronger, as he made this point, is because they are so much physically weaker, they can't physically attack you. So they emotionally, verbally, psychologically attack you. They attack your psyche, they attack your reputation. And it kind of gave me the thought of, that that leads me to an interesting point of maybe we should stop saying passive aggressive because it's aggressive. It's just not physically aggressive. It's not
Well, and
violent, but it's definitely aggression.
this is a very interesting point because this is something I have actually been thinking a lot lately because I'm dating again and stuff. Uh, our chink in our armor is that emotional damage. And I think I talked about this 2 episodes ago, how much more emotional men actually are. Because they say, oh, men don't talk about their emotions. No, we become stoic because we know how damaging they can be.
Mm,
But we feel them 100%. But again, aggression is the end result of feeling things too much and that we end up in jail. So our vulnerability is what they can attack us with. Their vulnerability is what we can attack them with, which is this fist right here, right? And the good guys keep the fist down. The good women don't crush them emotionally. But culture has created a system where this is bad, as it should be. And
mhm.
I'm holding up my fist if you're just listening. This is bad as it should be. But the other is, yeah, girl.
This is so um I brought him up earlier. I've been watching a number of his videos lately, just kind of getting caught up. Echo Chamberlain, he's a New Zealander who has a literature background, so that's how he approaches stories, as kind of in a classical kind of critique way. And he went down a rabbit hole on female literature, romanticy, literature, book talk, all this horrible nonsense, and even read clips of it, which gave me ear cancer, and I'm never going to recover because it was terrible,
Oh,
just from
you
a
should read the
technical
book
prose
that
point of view.
that Han has me reading had me reading. And I couldn't finish it because the protagonist was abusive. I'm sorry.
I
I just kept telling her. I was like,
I read lengthy excerpts when it was first blowing up, and like Oprah had this lady on her show of Shades of Grey, and I was like, why is this popular? This is awful.
Shades
I
of
would
Grey has nothing on this book that I'm talking
if
about.
someone had given me this excerpt when I was in grad school and I was helping undergrads with their essays and I was helping grade them, I would not have accepted. I would not have graded it. I would have handed it back and say, "Come back with something readable." I won't even grade this. Bring it back, fix it, and bring it back. That's how bad it is. But that's not what's important to the people who are reading this. Um, Again, it's the A word, affirmation. That's what they're after. And Echo Chamberlain went down a rabbit hole of these books and these authors, both in their own words from the books and in their own words from interviews, and basically, misogyny is bad because it's oppression. This is the simplified version. Misogyny is bad because it's oppression. Misandry is good because it is release.
Hmm, interesting. I've never thought
So
of it that way, so I might have to process that before the next episode. But yeah.
misandry is good in the same way that which one of these dingleberries was it who said the cure for past racism is
Kennedy.
Kendi. I couldn't
Kendi.
remember
Yeah.
which dingleberry that was, but it's the same idea of, oh, the patriarchy, which never really existed in the way you think it did. The
Not in the
patri
way it's taught in college. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it existed, but not in the way it's taught in college. Yeah.
and not for the reasons you think, but because the patriarchy, because female oppression, blatant toxic misandry is actually a good thing because we are throwing off the shackles, we are venting, we are purging these emotions, we're letting go all these things, all these affirmations. But it's not, and it's leading you to do objectively bad things, and it's leading you to be objectively unhappy. By your own admission, you aren't happy. So maybe this positivity isn't positive.
Mm. I'm thinking this might actually be paralleled when you see these women's marches and movements, and they all take their tops off and they're screaming at the clouds with their titties out. It's like, we have modesty for a reason. Now, I'm the least modest person in, I've
Got kicked
stripped
out of
it.
a Wendy's for jumping
I,
up on a table and doing a
for
striptease
yeah,
for
I've
what,
stripped
five
it a
bucks? I think was the bet.
yeah, $5. Yeah, I stripped at a bachelorette party one time, right? And I've dated people that were adult entertainers and stuff, but that was in a certain setting.
Mhm.
That was in the appropriate place where you're just like, oh, okay, you know what? We're not bigots, okay? But to throw it just out with kids around and everything, that's not appropriate. And I think that parallels with what you just said. That it's like, oh, this thing is like, oh, we can do this thing because of reason. And it's like, no, no, you can't because it's still not appropriate. It's not the right setting. If we were in the club, okay, maybe, but not in the middle of the street where all of these children are around that are going to be traumatized by this, by the way. So you talk about, proper behavior. You're traumatizing kids. That's abuse. I mean, it just, yeah, I think that parallels right with what you said. I don't know if it does, but I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, that was the train of thought I was trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
well, let's wrap this up on a positive note about getting out there and interacting with actual human beings in, a genuine social setting, and how positive that how that is a big cure to a lot of the things we rant about. You
yeah,
know,
because you listen to music on the radio all the time, right? And yeah, it's great. I mean, music is great. You're in your car, you're passing time, you're in the shower, whatever. But you go to a concert, and I'll also make sports part of this too.
mm,
Yeah, you go to a concert, and again, I'll pimp them out. Is the band I went to see was the home team, but then the headliner was another band, and I had never heard of this before. Someone said, "Oh, they're country core." I was like, "What's country
I hadn't
core?"
heard the term, but I'd accidentally stumbled on it on YouTube before. Yeah, there's some cool ones out there.
Because I hate the country rap, but
It's terrible. I despise it. Yeah.
yeah, country and rap don't mix. But country and metal, holy, that was we were like, "Oh, we'll give them one song." That's what
You're
we said.
speaking my language, because I have long thought that there needs to be like a good metal version of Riders in of the Sky. Johnny Cash's Ghost Riders in the Sky is a perfect metal song
Mm.
that I've never heard a good metal version of.
Yeah, that's one of those that you judge it based on it's a classic though. Like nobody's ever gotten Billie Jean right, and they've tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I we gave it one song and we ended up staying the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was freaking fantastic. But you're talking about the energy in the room, all the
Yep.
people interacting, and we're high-fiving each other and we're clapping with the band and we're doing all this, and you don't get that from listening to it on the radio. And so to parallel this to our conversation, you don't get the real affirmation from your friends from a heart on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you may look at the number, you got 150 hearts. Ooh, yay, people love me. But it's not the same as them saying, "Oh, y'all are so beautiful together." If it's a picture of a couple, or them actually being with you and saying, "Oh, I like y'all as a couple," or you're kind of cool. Let's hang out a little bit more, have another beer. That's completely different, and it hits you emotionally different. So, God, get out, everybody, get out, make friends. If you've got friends, hit them up.
And we started off and we've been ranting about intersex competition in the in relation to relationships, and why that's so problematic and making life even harder than it needs to be. But to the point here, you don't have to go out because you're looking to meet someone. You might, and you might like what you find, but just getting out to recharge those social batteries with a real interaction, not a fake, not a virtual interaction, will make you feel so much better. Now, if you're super introverted like me, you may need a few days after the fact to
Yeah, same.
decompress.
Yeah, so
But
you gotta recover. Yeah.
but you still need those moments. Again, you brought when we went through the personality types, and this was news to me, and something I learned is introversion, extroversion have nothing to do with social skills. It's about what recharges your batteries.
Mhm.
But even if the going out doesn't recharge your batteries, you still need it.
Yeah, but except in extreme versions of autism, you you even as an introvert, you still need the
Mm-hmm.
interaction. Now you can't take as much. You have to recharge, like you said. But at the same time, if you never get it, you become a miserable human being. And we again, something I give the credit to the social psychs, which that's my least favorite of them, is belonging. Belonging is so important, and it is because as humans, we kind of. I brought up the woolly mammoth hunting example earlier. One person doesn't take down a woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
One person doesn't collect enough tubers in the field to feed a village, right? We need each other. We kind of suck in nature as human beings, but we survived and we became the apex predator because we are social. That's why we beat Neanderthals. Neanderthals were better in every other physical metric. They were smarter, they were stronger, they were more adept to seeing like trajectory of projectiles and everything. But Homo sapiens made it because we banded together. And that's the important part. Now, again, back to the subject matter of today, it looks different for men and women. And frankly, we spent more time on the women because it's a much more interesting topic because men is just, are you the team captain? Am I the supporting role? I'm going to fight you for the team captain. And oh, I want that same girl as you. I'm going to fight you for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the female is much more nuanced in the argument. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. Hopefully, understanding that helps you with your relationships, which is where we'll probably close this here, because there. Okay, say you're a female and your friend is doing stuff that it feels like it is hurting you. Take a breath, understand where it might come from, and say, oh, okay, how can I make that person more comfortable? Or is that person damaging to my future? And go from there.
Yep. Well, hopefully this helped someone. If it did, let us know. If you have thoughts, experiences, questions, let us know and we'll comment on it and we'll see y'all next time.
Yep. See y'all later.